My initial goal was to gain 50, maybe 60 pounds, but I had to go for 6 months. And so I gained 76 pounds at my heaviest. I'm like, okay, I'm way over, I overshot my goal. And now I've never had to do this before. I've had to cut weight for wrestling, and that's different. I've never had to lose 75 pounds before. I've never been in this situation. So, and I had all these people watching me, and I had these fears of like, what if it doesn't work? Like, I'll be seen as a failure, as a fraud. Like, here's this personal trainer that, teaches people how to lose weight, and he can't even lose it himself.
Yeah.
And so I kind of freaked out because your identity is based on what your body looks like your entire life. So if you grew up in your entire life in shape, that kind of becomes your identity. If you grew up your entire life out of shape, same thing, that kind of becomes your identity. And so once I lost my body, I didn't know who I was. So I kind of freaked out and had to relearn that I am more than my body. And that's the lesson at the end of the day, is that I have more to offer this world than my body. And that transformation is way more mental and emotional than most trainers or coaches think. We just think it's macros, calories, calorie deficit, and work out, and then, that's how you lose weight.
Welcome back to episode number 257. I'm Mike Mutzel, and I'm super excited that you're here, that you subscribe to this channel. It really does mean a lot to me, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed the show with Drew Manning. As you may know, he's a New York Times bestselling author of Fit to Fat to Fit. He gained over 75 pounds on purpose and lost it in less than 6 months. Now, here's what's unique about his journey and what we're going to talk about today, and even more details are included in his new book, Complete Keto, which is available anywhere books are sold. We're going to talk about the mental, emotional struggles that are associated with weight loss. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the minutiae of carb cycling, exercise, things along those lines. But a lot of us have this identity that we're either always going to be fat or we'll always be poor. We'll always have this problem. But we need to change our identity and our belief system in order to achieve our goals. That's what we talk about today. It's a great discussion. I really hope you enjoy it. It's brought to you by our friends over at butcherbox.com. I like the product, especially for those of you that are only eating 1 or 2 meals a day. You have to get the most nutrient-dense food when you're eating a smaller, especially when you're compressing your feeding window and having fewer meals that we generally recommend on a low-carb ketogenic style diet. So butcherbox.com is supplying truly 100% pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef products, heritage pork products, and pasture-raised free-range chicken products. And the promotion that they have going on right now for high-intensity health listeners includes over 2 pounds of wild-caught Alaskan salmon. So there's a link below. You can click the link right here as well to save on that promotion and support what our friends over at butcherbox.com are doing. Drew Manning, thanks for coming on, bud.
Thanks,
Great
man.
to be with you.
Coming out to Utah.
Yeah, you got a beautiful view. You can see the whole valley there.
Yeah, I love it, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So what brought you to Salt Lake?
My ex-wife, her family lived out here actually. We were living in Chicago at the time, and back in 2008-ish, like the economy took a hit, obviously, and so we decided to move to Utah, where her family was from, and kind of start all over. I was working as a financial analyst for Chrysler, so the auto industry. We all know how that went,
right? Yeah,
the U.S. auto industry.
Yeah.
So, anyways, got out of the auto industry, moved here, and got into the medical field actually. So
you were selling devices and things like that?
No, it was called neuromonitoring. So I was a technician, and I was there in the operating room during neck and back surgery.
Okay.
Monitoring patients' nervous system. While at the same time, I got certified as a trainer, and that's where I was doing part-time personal training, full-time in the medical field.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you want to get into the mindset of your clients as a trainer, and you realize, like, man, I can't understand why they don't have the motivation, the energy, the internal motivation to do this. He said, I just want to be overweight myself and figure out what's going on.
That's kind of the idea in a nutshell. Basically, I grew up my entire life in shape. I grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters. I played football and wrestling from a very young age. So all I ever knew was that it was easy to be in shape, right? Because for me, it came kind of easy. And I was trying to help clients, and there was a disconnect, and they would tell me I didn't understand, the struggles especially with food addiction. And I didn't. I was like, it's not that hard. You just stop drinking soda, and you just go to the gym. And so that was kind of my approach. But I had to think of a different way of approaching this. And boom, this idea of getting fat on purpose. As crazy as that sounds, it made sense in my mind. And that's why I decided to go down this fit to fat to fit journey.
Yeah, no, I love it. So what year was that, and how long did it take you to get really overweight?
So 2011 is when I started this journey, May 7th, 2011, and 6 months of gaining weight. 6 months of no exercise, ate whatever I wanted to. It was mostly I focused on highly processed, standard American foods that you could find in the grocery store that were cheap, convenient, that tasted good.
Yeah.
So for 6 months, I did that and gained 75 pounds of pure fat.
Oh my gosh, that must have been so hard, because as a lifelong athlete, you're like, this is part of your life. It's not just like something you're doing for spring break.
Exactly. It wasn't just like a weekend of binging. It was 6 months of just like, at first it was fun. The first month was kind of this sense of freedom where I was like, I don't have to go to the gym. I can go to the grocery store. I can eat whatever I want to, right? And like this false sense of freedom. And so, it was cool to be able to buy 5 different types of cereal: Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Lucky Charms, Captain Crunch cereal, all the soda, all the chips, cookies, and crackers that I ever wanted. But then very quickly, I started snoring at night, breathing really heavy, walking up the stairs, had to hold my breath to bend over and tie my shoes because of all the visceral fat that was building up. And it became very, very humbling very quickly. And it really changed the way I viewed transformation from a mental and emotional perspective, because this journey, even though it was a physical weight gain, was way harder on the mental and emotional level than it was on the physical level.
Mm-hmm. You mean, like we were talking offline, your confidence, your self-esteem, like, because the external world saw you as a different person.
Yeah.
From this fit, you used to be fit, ripped, and then now you're overweight, and that must have been really tough.
It was. Like, I wanted to go up to complete strangers and tell them that I'm not really overweight. Like, here's my before picture. Go to this website. It's just an experiment, people. I promise. I'm not really this big. And I kind of freaked out because your identity is based on what your body looks like your entire life. So if you grew up in your entire life in shape, that kind of becomes your identity. If you grew up your entire life out of shape, same thing, that kind of becomes your identity. And so once I lost my body, I didn't know who I was. So I kind of freaked out and had to relearn that I am more than my body. And that's the lesson at the end of the day, is that I have more to offer this world than my body. And that transformation is way more mental and emotional than most trainers or coaches think. We just think it's macros, calories, calorie deficit and workout, and then that's how you lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
so the mindset is a big part of what you teach people now. Yeah. That is tough, because I think at the end of the day, that drives a lot of binging when it comes to food and alcohol and substance abuse or whatever. And then the weight gain associated with that. Like, we just think it's the macros. Like, why aren't you just keto? Like, but it's a little bit more, right?
Exactly.
What have you found are the best tools with coping? Because a lot of people are lonely, they're eating by themselves. What do we do?
It's really hard. So it's an uphill battle, because society, has it set up for us to fail, right? Fast food, like the food is so convenient and it tastes so good. You got to admit, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, I don't care who you are, it's so delicious, and it becomes addictive very quickly, because it creates this vicious cycle in our bodies where, we get this almost high feeling from eating these processed carbs and these sugars. And then, if we don't have that, we get this crash, and then we want that high again. So it's just like a drug. Like, you wouldn't go up to a drug addict and tell them, hey, stop doing drugs. What's wrong with you? It's not that simple. I think food addiction is way more powerful than people think. And that emotional connection to food is a lot more powerful than people think. And so people that struggle with the food addiction, or trying to adopt a healthy lifestyle, I wish it was like a black and white approach of like, okay, here's your meal plans, here's your workouts. None of that stuff matters. If that person doesn't know how to overcome their own mental and emotional challenges, then it's just going to be another diet instead of a lifestyle change. And that's what we're trying to get people to adopt, is a lifestyle change. But it's a huge overhaul, because they really have to change their life completely and how they view food. So, we expect people to jump from A to Z, like, oh, you're eating McDonald's and processed carbs all day long. Come over here and be a purist and never touch processed carbs and any kind of chemicals again. That's not realistic for most people. Mm-hmm. So my thing is, if we can get people from A to B, and then B to C, and then C to D, and eventually make progress over to the side, I think that's the approach, instead of like, all right, don't touch sugar ever again, don't touch a carbohydrate ever again. I just don't think that's realistic in today's society. But it's just changing our perception, because that's the problem, is people think that's what they have to do to be healthy. Well, I have to get rid of everything. I have to look like these Instagram models and do what they're doing. And it's our perception of health and fitness. We have to look like the people we see in magazines to be healthy, when in reality, that's not true. Your healthy looks different on your body versus my version of healthy on my body, right? And that's what we have to come to realize, is that, our healthy is gonna look different than what we expect it to look like from social media and what we see on TV.
Yeah, and most people don't realize that those people that are taking those pictures where they're shredded abs and serratus, they dieted down for weeks, prior to that, and are manipulating salt and water and everything.
Yeah, and a lot of them are really unhealthy too. Like they don't know it. Like they look great on the outside, but health isn't just a matter of like our outward appearance. A lot of it has to do with blood work, and a lot of people are literally dying on the inside, even though they're skinny or they have a six-pack. That doesn't mean that you're healthy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Great. No, it's a great point. Yeah, I totally agree. So going back to like the mindset, like, so someone comes in, they want to lose weight. How much of the changes is mindset emotional, like versus the nuts and bolts and the tactics of like fasted cardio, caffeine, lifting, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, where do you like people to start first?
Yeah, that's a good question. If I had to like break it out into a percentage, I mean, if we focus most of our time, like 80% of our time helping people with their mental and emotional challenges, I think that's where we'll see the most success. And about 20% on, okay, here's your physical program. Here's your, if you do keto, here's your macros you follow, here's your calories, here's your workouts that are subscribed to you. Because I don't think it's a lack of knowledge by most people. It's not like people don't know they need to eat less and work out. I think most people know that. And if people just did that, there'd be a huge difference in today's society. But it's their emotional connection to food that is keeping people back, and that has to do with low self-esteem or trauma from a childhood that it's not a simple fix. It's not like, okay, here's the pill you take, and then all of a sudden all that trauma and all that emotional baggage is gone. I wish it was as simple as that. Yeah. So some things that I found that have helped people in this space on the mental and emotional side is a couple things. One is giving them a support system. So I think that the power of community is really powerful. And nowadays with technology and Facebook, there's these groups where you can join and you could be part of a community where people are doing the same journey as you, and that you can relate to them. You can see their struggles and you're like, they know exactly what I'm going through. And that gives me power and motivation to want to do this because I know other people can understand my struggles. And if you feel understood, you're more willing to do the work that you know you need to do versus like, okay, if I just dig in really hard and willpower my way through this new lifestyle change, I'm going to conquer the world. It doesn't happen that way, but you need people to lift you up when you need it and give you empathy and letting you know that you're worth it, but also people to give you a kick in the butt too sometimes. We all need a kick in the butt, that motivation to work out on days we don't want to work out, or doing keto, like we all crave carbs at some point in time, and we need people to tell us like no, you got to keep doing this. Like, you're worth it to keep trying to fight for your health. So I think the support system and that accountability are what's key. And so what I do is I help run a few successful Facebook groups where there's tens of thousands of people in these groups helping each other out, providing support, also talking about their failures, and it's a safe place to talk about those mistakes or ask quote unquote dumb questions because no one's going to judge them because everyone's been there too. Does that make sense?
Totally. No, it's great. I mean, we all have many failures, and I think that's where we learn. You know what I mean? Like you and I might, willpower, maybe we're stressed or underslept or whatever, and we're going to get like a chocolate bar that has more sugar than we would normally have, right? Yeah. So sharing that I think is key.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that accountability. So using the internet as a big accountability partner.
Yeah, and there's apps too. I mean, there's like so many different ways to approach it. I mean, I remember hearing about these apps or these programs where you put money in and you make a bet, and if you don't fulfill that bet, that money is used to go to a charity of something that you hate, and you have to pick what that charity is. Yeah. So like, I've heard of people like donating money to the KKK, if they fail at their goal, and that's motivation for them to be like, okay, I definitely don't want that to happen, so I'm gonna meet this goal. But you kind of bet against yourself, and anytime money is involved, I've read you're 5 times more likely to fulfill or succeed in that goal if you put money down, right? Versus if it's free. So I think money is a good motivator as well for some people, like signing up for a Spartan race or a 5K or some type of challenge where you have to put money down in a way that helps motivate people. Now, does that help them live it as a lifestyle? No, but that accountability is really powerful and important for people to stick to a goal.
And then once they realize the change and how much more energy they have, how they feel, then they're more likely to stay on that track as opposed to just slip back to where they were maybe.
100%. And they're more likely to help other people because they kind of become missionaries for this movement. Like, oh, you have to stick with it. Like, I have to tell you about how it changed my life. And they tell their testimonial, their story of how it transformed them. And then that gives that new person that's coming in motivation to be like, okay, I'm going to stick with this. Like, if someone I trust and, seen your story, like that's motivation. That's really powerful.
It's such a key point. And then people, they start to identify with that as the keto person or the whatever person. Then there's this cognitive dissonance if they have carbohydrates, if they start teaching people.
Yeah.
So I've noticed people, and I think that's why keto's taken off so much, because a few people have had success, and then they make their Instagram channel like Keto in Utah, right? And then so they're helping other people, and then now they identify with being the keto person. So then when that birthday cake comes out, or at church there's bread, they're like, wait, I'm keto in Utah, I can't, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's cool using social media is in that manner too.
It's even helped me, so when I did Fit to Fit and I had to lose the weight, which was way harder than I thought it would be, even though I had eyes on me, there was moments of where I wanted Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Mountain Dew, because I remember how good it felt and how good it tasted. But knowing that there were people online that followed me, that fear of, what if I ran into somebody that's like, oh yeah, you're Drew, the Fit to Fit guy, you're losing weight right now, right? Wait a second, what's in your cart here? What are you doing with Cinnamon Toast Crunch? And oh, wait, what's going on? And so that fear kind of kept me motivated to be like, okay, I definitely don't want to do that. And I think we all need that. Even me, all of us need that accountability.
Especially because it's all around us.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Food scientists are smart. They invented that so that you buy more of it. You know what I mean? It's not like an orange where just through natural selection it's sweet. Yeah.
It's not like they got lucky with the flavoring. There's millions of dollars of research going into the hyper palatability of these foods.
Totally. One time, Landon, could we check that C100? Just remember that card. It's amazing. So, all right. So 6 months into it, you're like, all right, I've had enough. I just can't do it. What other changes? You said you had to suck in and take a deep breath before you bent down. You would get winded when you walked upstairs. What about libido, overall energy? Did you feel depressed at all? I mean, outside of your ego was harmed a little bit, right? Because you identify with one person. But was there because we hear about this whole brain-gut connection and stuff like that, and how fat cells release inflammatory cytokines. So I'm trying to get at the biochemistry of it. Do you think that it really altered your thinking?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely became a different person. My personality changed because here's the thing. It's a snowball effect, right? So my sleep was affected. I started snoring right from the beginning, so that affected my sleep cycle. So I woke up more tired, and my hormones were off because of that. So my energy levels throughout the day were off, and your testosterone drops. And my testosterone got to the low 200s at my heaviest, which was scary. And as a young 31-year-old male, you don't want to have low testosterone. And then on top of that, my confidence as well, and my blood pressure was 167 over 113.
Whoa.
Yeah, so these numbers got really scary, and I wouldn't say I was depressed. I would say I felt sorry for myself at times, right? But it was a snowball effect of all these other factors that people overlook, because people look at food as weight gain or weight loss, healthy food, unhealthy food. When in reality, there's so much more to it than that. People don't realize that food affects you at the cellular level, affects your hormones, affects your gut bacteria, which now we're learning can affect things like depression, anxiety, and mood. And we never knew that before, right? So now we're realizing how powerful food really is, and not just when it comes to gaining weight or losing weight. And it changes you at the core of who you are, right? And I think that's what's kind of scary is we are Cinnamon Toast Crunch, if I have it, doesn't make me feel bad. It's not like I'm gonna die. It slowly creeps up on you, where before it's too late, and maybe you have Alzheimer's one day, or Parkinson's, or something that's a serious condition, or type 2 diabetes, and you're like, okay, now I should make some changes. But now you got to reverse all those years and years and years of those effects of those foods on you.
Totally.
And that's what's hard.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. So was there ever a point where you're like, oh man, I hope I can get this weight off? Did I mess up thinking that this was it? Did you have that fear?
100%, because here's the thing. My initial goal was to gain 50, maybe 60 pounds, but I had to go for 6 months. And so I gained 76 pounds at my heaviest. So I'm like, okay, I'm way over. I overshot my goal. And now I've never had to do this before. I've had to cut weight for wrestling, and that's different. I've never had to lose 75 pounds before. I've never been in this situation. And I had all these people watching me, and I had these fears of what if it doesn't work? I'll be seen as a failure, or as a fraud. Here is this personal trainer that, teaches people how to lose weight, and he can't even lose it himself.
Yeah.
And so I had these doubts and these fears, but I knew I had to trust in the process, and I knew how to take it one day at a time. And it took me all 6 months to lose that weight. And there was times where I hit plateaus where I didn't lose weight some weeks, and I freaked out. I'm like, okay, here I am, a trainer with all the knowledge of how to do this, and yet I'm not losing the weight. It's not, linear. It's not like every week is exactly the same amount of weight. Some weeks I gained weight, and I freaked out. And helped me relate to my clients, because I remember clients telling me, like, Drew, I'm doing your meal plans, I'm doing your workouts, like, it's just not showing up on the scale. I'm like, yeah, you're probably lying about something.
Yeah.
You know, you're probably not doing exactly right. And then here I am doing it, and it's not reflecting on the scale. And I think people put too much emphasis on scale weight, first of all. But at the same time, you know, it's not black and white, where you're going to see, just because you work hard and you eat what you're supposed to eat, it doesn't mean that you're going to see, you know, 2 pounds lost every week, you know, week after week for 6 months.
Right.
So it was really important learning those lessons.
So that ebbed and flowed a little bit. You're still trending in the right direction,
Yes.
but it wasn't, that's super interesting. Now, what about like the food cravings? So like, cause you had 6 months of like dopamine hit, Skittles, like all that, right? There must have been like a withdrawal.
100%.
Yeah.
And that was another important lesson. So the first, you know, I went cold turkey. The West way I did it went from 5,000 calories of, you know, macaroni and cheese and Hot Pockets and SpaghettiOs to 2,000 calories of real whole food. And I'll be totally honest with you, the food tasted awful. I felt miserable. I had headaches. I was grumpy. I was moody. And here I was, an advocate of living a healthy lifestyle, yet I felt awful. And it clicked for me. This is what my clients were telling me when I tried to get them on a healthy eating plan. They're like, you know, I don't feel good. The food tastes awful. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, the food is awesome. Like, it makes you feel awesome. Like me, like, I feel awesome when I eat this food. But man, it took a good 2 weeks of hell to learn that. And it helped me realize how powerful that emotional connection to food, because I only lived this way for 6 months. Imagine someone that ate that food for 6 years or 6 decades. And now you're trying to tell them, okay, spinach, kale, broccoli, like all these healthy foods that we're supposed to eat, you know, and you wonder why people have a hard time sticking to eating real food, because we've grown up in a generation where we've been, you know, shoved processed food in our face, you know, since we were a kid, you know? Like, I grew up in the 80s, and it was Cinnamon Toast Crunch or sugary cereal for breakfast and juice, and, you know, white bread, peanut butter and honey sandwiches, you know, for lunch, and white pasta for dinner, you know?
Me too.
Was what I grew up in, so.
So was there any tactics that helped you get over that? Or did you just chalk it up to, my taste buds are kind of, we call them like resensitizing or whatever. My biology's adapting. Was that part of it, or how did you deal with some of that withdrawal?
That's a good question. I mean, like I talked about before, the accountability factor, like knowing that other people were doing this journey with me. So that's the thing, is I invited all my, you know, tens of thousands of followers to join me, and I wanted to show exactly what I did every single day. So I'm like, here's what I eat. This isn't like a paid program. Anyone can watch what I do. Here's my workouts, because I wanted to show people this wasn't like I was starving myself. It wasn't like I was working out 3-4 hours a day. It was, you know, 5 days a week, 30 to 40 minutes of exercise, you know, 2,000 calories spread out over 5 or 6 meals. And that was my approach. And it wasn't like any secret. It was just a lifestyle change. And so, so the accountability factor, knowing other people were doing this with me, helped out. On top of that, I think, you know, blogging about it, being honest, and being able having an outlet to talk to people about what I was experiencing, like, really helped me kind of process through it. Versus some people are like, oh, this sucks, and they have no one to talk to about it, and they just keep it in. They're like, okay, tomorrow I'm just gonna willpower my way through it, and I think I can do this. And like, oh man, that looks so good today, you know, like they go through these ups and downs. And so I think having, you know, an outlet, like I talked about, social media or a coach to talk to, really can help out.
That's awesome. What tactics do you think were the most effective? I mean, was it cardio, lifting weights, a combination, or other things maybe where you said you didn't lose weight some weeks?
Yeah.
Were there other like non-dietary factors going on, like stress, sleep, travel, whatever, that you found particularly slowed down your ability to burn fat?
That's a good question. I did notice the weeks that I traveled, because here's the thing, Fit to Fit took off, right? It went viral. I went on a bunch of TV shows, did a media tour, so I was having to travel a lot, like, as I was losing weight. And I remember the weeks that I did travel, those were usually the weeks that I didn't lose weight, or I hit a plateau of some type. From a non-dietary perspective of what I did to the tactics I used. Exercise, so what I did was 5 days a week only, right? I didn't work out Saturday, Sunday. I took those days off. Monday, Wednesday, Friday were lifting days, and I always did supersets. So that's why my workouts were only 30 minutes, right? 40 max, where I would do one set of like chest exercise, and with 0 break, I would go right into another set of back exercise, and then right back into it. So no breaks, right? So I was getting the benefits of cardio with an elevated heart rate, but also the benefits of resistance training. Tuesdays, Thursdays were my cardio days, but I didn't do 30 minutes of like walking on the treadmill. It was high intensity interval training. So that was anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes where I would do these intervals, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds of a sprint, 30 seconds recovery, 30 second sprint. And so that's pretty much the format I use for the last 5 months of my journey. Because here's the thing I didn't mention, the first 30 days back to fit, I didn't exercise at all. Wow. I just changed my diet. I wanted to show people how powerful nutrition was. Yeah. And I lost 19 pounds that first month. All my blood work went back to normal levels. My blood pressure normalized, and my testosterone more than doubled in that first month without any exercise, just changing up my diet. But eventually I did go back into the gym the last 5 months, and that was the structure I followed.
I see.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Yeah. So just a dietary change. So 7 months you were inactive.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. 7 months.
You started May 7th?
May 7th, 2011.
So you were overweight over the summer? Or this was during the winter?
I was overweight during the summer.
Oh, that must have been tough.
Right before Thanksgiving, I made that switch.
Yeah, would have been so much easier in the winter.
I know, I'm like, I should have planned this out better, but I wasn't too smart about it. I just kind of jumped into it, right?
That is so funny. So knowing this, right, we
Yes.
kind of talked about the big insights, the emotional connection to food and all that. What like key takeaways or key mental hurdles that people run into? Like if you were to say like, the big thing I learned from this was...
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I learned is how much of transformation is mental and emotional versus people are looking for the magic pill. We have this diet mentality of what's the quickest way to lose the most amount of weight in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of effort, right? And so sometimes that's keto. People are like, oh yeah, I heard keto, you lose weight really fast. That's cool and all, but if you approach it with a diet mentality, that means there's a start date and an end date. And then after the end date, what do? You go back to your old habits, And so really what people need to understand is to make it a lifestyle change, it's more so looking inward of why do I suffer with, whether it's food addiction or why can't I stick to a healthy lifestyle more than 30 days or 60 days? Like what is it about me? And versus looking for, oh, well, it's someone else's fault, or it's my trainer's fault or like whoever it is, like you're looking for someone to blame, but really it's internalizing why you have that emotional connection to food. Like why do you do it and figuring that out. Now, some people don't have the time or they don't want to make the effort to do that. So there are professionals that can help people out with that. And I think being open to that is really important for people to at least look into to see if that's something that they need. A professional therapist or psychologist to help you overcome those mental and emotional challenges. But just realize that, I could give you the best meal plan, the best workout, the best trainer. None of that matters if you don't know how to overcome your own mental and emotional challenges.
That's such a great point. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is mental, right? I mean, and if you look at professional athletes, the ones that take off or sometimes don't perform under pressure, right? It's all mental. Mm-hmm. Like their athletic performance, like if you look at like their figures are right on point, like at a combine or whatever.
Yes.
Because I know you played football. So that's interesting. What books do you find like most helpful to help people with this?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't read a lot of health and fitness books. There are some that I do read, obviously, just to kind of stay in the know on the industry. But as far as like the mindset goes,
if there's that Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
The Power of Habit is really good. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that one first and foremost, but that one's a great one to get started with. There's another one called The Art of Life that I really like, and that just talks about the power of the brain and how if you envision something and you engulf yourself in that vision, your body and the powers that be can help you achieve that goal. And there's a lot of examples in there of people who have done that before. And I think that's kind of overlooked because it sounds woo-woo, it sounds weird, but if you truly believe something, that you're going to achieve something, it really can happen if you believe in yourself. The problem is that we doubt ourselves. Totally. And so the power of self-belief, I think, is kind of what I got from that book, The Art of Life.
That's key. A lot of athletes like visualize themselves on stage.
Yeah.
Lee Haney, I first got this bodybuilding book when I was 14. Like he would visualize his arms getting bigger, his shoulders growing, and that was like key to his success. Like he did all the training, but he would just sit there at night and ruminate over what his body would look like. And I know you do this for your business. I saw the vision board out there and all that. So it's like, this is big. Like people overlook this stuff because they want to focus on the macros, the keto numbers, but your mind is pretty powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's, even Olympic athletes that do that, but that doesn't mean that a normal person can't do that too.
Right.
Right. And so we just don't think that we're worthy of it sometimes. Like, that's for Olympians, that's for special people. But people are like, I'm not special, but you are worth it. You are worth it to fight for your health, to fight for the best version of you. That doesn't mean you hate yourself the way you are now. You love yourself who you are and be grateful for what you have as you're working on a better version of yourself. We're all working on a better version of ourselves. We don't want to wait until like, oh, one day I'll be happy with who I am, or one day I'll be rich enough or famous enough or skinny enough to love myself. Start now with where you're at now, because otherwise you'll just be chasing happiness all over the place from these outward sources, when in reality, we can create it from within.
That's key. You know, they talk about that in addiction medicine, like looking in the mirror for like 30 seconds or something and just saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. And most like addicts can't do it. So like speaking of your ego and the mental shift that occurred with this, do you feel like you have more self-love now, like afterwards?
That's a good point. Yeah, because I totally changed my perception of what it means to be healthy and fit. Before I was obsessed with what my body looked like, thinking that's how I show myself love, by having a perfect body. When in reality, my mindset was suffer, beat yourself up to become a better version of yourself. That doesn't work, and even though I looked great on the outside before I did this, I was unhappy with who I was on the inside. I was never perfect enough. I was never good enough. And then after this, I kind of had, along with some life experiences, had that mental shift of seeing myself in the positive affirmations like you talked about. I do those, and it sounds weird, but once you do them on a consistent basis, like it changes the way you view yourself and the way you view other people too. And so, I'm a big fan of self-love and positive affirmations, and I like to lift weights too. So it's a good balance, and it's different, because we're in our society, we're taught that you're not supposed to talk about your feelings, you're not supposed to show emotions, but I don't know, that route kind of broke me, and luckily I've had some life experiences that have changed that, and so now I'm a big advocate of those things.
Yeah. When you say life experiences, are we talking like ayahuasca and stuff like that, or just other?
I have not done ayahuasca yet, and I've learned a lot about it. I'm talking about divorce.
Okay. Yeah.
Going through a divorce, which I grew up in a very religious background, and that was like seen as a failure. At least that was my perception of it, and so I was like, I can't go through this, because this was during/after Fit to Fit, and people knew who I was, and I didn't want to be seen as a failure, and so I did whatever I could to kind of hide that. But like I said, it broke me, that mentality of like, beat yourself up, and don't be vulnerable, and see if that works. And for 30 years, I lived that way, and it broke me. And now here I am, 37 years old, never been happier, but I had to go through that divorce to change my mindset and realize that I'm not defined by my past, and vulnerability is a strength.
Yeah, that's awesome. How many people do you think are in bad relationships, and that's affecting their emotional eating patterns and all this other stuff, drug use or whatever? I mean, do you think that's a part of it?
I think almost all suffering stems from relationships, and whether it's relationships with our parents, relationships with ourselves, relationships with society. It all stems from that, and I think it all starts with how we see ourselves. Like, our perception of how we see ourselves is based on how we're raised, and sometimes, just speaking from my own experience, I hated who I was because I never felt like I was good enough, and so that was my mentality, was to beat yourself up, to hopefully prove to people that you were worthy, or that you were good enough. And because of that, I think I suffered a lot, but most people suffer because they see themselves as a failure, so they do failure-like things when they see themselves as a failure. And so that's where I think a lot of people suffer. It all stems from relationships, and that's why before I was talking about like internalizing, going inwards to find out, why you struggle with food addiction. It's not the addiction. It's why the pain.
Yeah.
Why do you have the pain? And the addiction is just a cover up from, of that pain. So why do you have the pain, and being able to figure out why you have that pain? And it probably most times stems from some type of relationship with family or society or themselves.
Yeah. Interesting. I love it.
I'm not an expert, but that's just my own experience.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, Gabor Mate talks a lot about this. A lot of people talk about this, suffering, and then these small little things that maybe we don't even remember when we're 3 or 4, dad left or mom left or whatever, you were abused, and then it affects our entire life, which is so crazy when you think about it. So how does that change like how you raise your kids now? Like being present with them,
That's a great question. It's weird because I kind of took the opposite approach of the way I was raised. I'm like, okay, this didn't work for me. I want to change how my daughters are raised. And I read this book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters that really changed my mindset of how important a father's role is in a daughter's life. right? That father-daughter relationship. And, obviously being present. So meditation has helped me with that, like the importance of being present. I didn't grow up learning about meditation or learning about being present or how to be present. But that's been a game changer for me. Just being present with them, I think, is kind of the whole mindset of quality time versus quantity time. So when I'm with them, I'm not on my phone. I'm not, thinking about the future or worrying about the past. I'm truly present with them in the moment. I think that's very important for a child to have that. And that's the thing. It's like going back thinking about myself. I don't remember having those moments, but it's very important. And that's what I try and do with my daughters. And, from that book I was mentioning, daughters learn how to love from their moms, but they learn how to be loved from their dads.
Interesting.
So I was like, wow, that makes so much sense, So I need to teach them how to be loved, how a man should treat them. And so my hope is that I'm doing the best I can, and I'm not perfect, but just being aware of that and helps me stay motivated to continue to make an effort every day.
That's a great insight. Yeah. Have you found that, like, with adults, like if you're not present or if you're not aware, some people aren't attuned to that, but kids, like, they know when you're not paying attention to them.
It's
like
so
there's
funny.
Like the sixth sense or something.
Yeah, they do have a sixth sense about that, and it's really funny because they can tell. And even if I'm like recording them on the phone, like they'll check to see if I'm really recording or if I'm like on an app or like texting somebody. And they're very aware of that. And you can't fake it really.
Yeah.
You can't fake it as a parent.
Right, you just got to put it away.
Exactly.
My wife and I have this business idea, like a side hustle kind of thing, to create this device called Disconnect, where all the phones and devices just go right in there. And we have drawers in our homes where you put the phone, but it's there and you can take it out. But this would be like a vault where you just put the phone away.
Oh, good idea.
And it would kind of
timer.
Yeah, and it would gamify it, so you get little points like, I disconnected for 3 hours or whatever.
Yes.
I don't know. It's
that's a good idea.
Yeah, we're talking about it later. All right, so let's kind of finish up morning routine. So what in your routine? You talked about meditating.
Yeah.
Are we good? I know I heard a button. We good over there, bud?
Oh yeah, I was just switching.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
So one thing that makes successful people successful is their routines, their habits, the things that they do. Walk us through, briefly, like what things you do in the morning that set you up for success that day.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if in a perfect world, like on a perfect day, because having kids, it doesn't always go according to plan. Like if you wake up in the middle of the night, someone has a nightmare or has an accident, and you got to get up. Like it's not always perfect, but in a perfect world, normally, like what I'll do is I'll wake up and I will meditate first thing in the morning. And recently I've been using an infrared or red light therapy.
Joovv?
Yes, Joovv,
Nice.
which I love. And so I'll meditate with that shining on me. And for 10 minutes, I will meditate. I'll use apps like brain.fm, which is a good app, or Calm, or sometimes I'll just put on some binaural beats, and just meditate. And for me, that's huge. And then I'll go right into positive affirmations after that. And then I'll come upstairs, drink a ton of water, right, with some sea salt, a little pinch of sea salt in there as well. And then I'll write out my, I don't even know what to call it, but it's just like my plan for the day. So 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for first, and then my to-do list for the day, and then my goals, right? And I'll write it out and I'll say them, right? So I'll say them so that I think that like saying it out loud is really powerful. That's how I do my positive affirmations too. Either in the mirror or saying it out loud is really important. So, and then from there is my coffee routine, which I love coffee, and I'm a fan of adding healthy fats to my coffee. So I'll do MCT oil powder. That's it's sweetened with stevia, so it's really good. I'll also throw in some turmeric and some cinnamon, and maybe like a scoop or half a scoop of collagen protein, and I'll blend that up, and that's kind of my breakfast for the day. And then I will get ready for the gym, and I'll throw in, if I'm going to work out hard that day, some exogenous ketone supplementation, and then I'll do my workout, come back, shower, and then get started with work, and then I'll work till I get hungry, which is usually around noon or 1 p.m. Lunch from there, and oh yeah, you said morning routine.
No, this is good. No, I was going to ask, when's your first major meal? So you're getting into it.
So like noon to 1, and then I'm good to go till about 6 p.m. I make dinner for my girls. We eat dinner together as a family. They eat what I eat, and I follow mostly a ketogenic diet, but now I've been doing it for so long, I can get away with more carbs than most people. And so it's not like a strict keto diet. And it's, I dip in and out of ketosis from time to time, especially with my daughters, if we want to have birthday cake or, we have a pizza night every once in a while or whatever it is, I think it's good to have
Flexibility.
those moments. Yeah, that flexibility. So, and that's like a good, typical, perfect day. And then I'm in bed, honestly, by 9, 10 at the latest.
That's awesome. Good for you. Yeah. So you prioritize sleep.
Yes,
I was going to ask you. You said when you were overweight, you had like little sleep apnea, snoring. Has that gone away?
Yep, 100%. Cool. Yeah, that was just during. Like, it was weird within the first month. Even though I wasn't really big yet, I was like 25 pounds heavier, and people didn't even really notice the visceral fat. You don't really see, right? So that's what affects you, the most in some cases. So.
They call it too creeping fat. So it's like creeping up, like in your organs and compressing stuff.
And that's why it's so hard to breathe, It was so hard for me to breathe, like bending over, like after a meal, like all my organs were pushed up and it was so hard to breathe. I had to sit there for like a good hour to try and digest.
Crazy. So you can understand like acid reflux then and all that.
100%.
Wow, that's crazy. So I love that routine. So basically 2 meals a day and then the fatty coffee in the morning.
Exactly.
Is kind of what you do.
Yep. And then sometimes, I've done some extended fasts. I've done a 7-day, couple 3 days. I've done a 4-day fast where it's just water only, maybe a bone broth or, I'll throw in some ketones every now and then. But I'm a big fan of just a water fast. Yeah. And so I do that maybe once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen some of your Instagram stories where you're talking about, hey guys, I just did this fast and whatnot. And, that's cool. What herb, nutrient, botanical? You're stranded on a desert island. Vitamin D and omega-3s are covered. Okay. What's coming with you?
Ooh, magnesium. Magnesium citrate or glycinate. Let's see what else. I would take turmeric. I would take turmeric for sure. How many can I go? How many are we going for here? Exactly. Yeah. And then probably some type of probiotic. I'll take some type of probiotic as well.
Nice.
And I think I could live pretty healthy off that.
Yeah. Just eat the local food and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. If you were in an elevator with a parliament member from another country, a politician of sorts, and they said, Drew, what's the biggest health challenge that my constituents are facing right now, like that I could influence maybe policy around? What would you want them to know, like just big picture?
Big picture. Tell the truth. The truth about what's really healthy and what's not healthy. Like this whole okay, how do I shorten this? Right? We've been pitched that so many things are quote unquote healthy for us. Yeah. Because it's fortified with vitamin A and vitamin D, or it's low fat, or it's all natural. It's
whole wheat.
It's whole wheat. Like all these marketing gimmicks that make this country a lot of money, make some people really rich. They make some people really sick and really unhealthy. And we kind of turn a blind eye to it because there are some studies showing that, this is justifying this, so it's not our fault, right? But in reality, it's the truth. And it would be so interesting if we just flipped it on its head and said, hey, by the way, all these processed sugars, these processed carbohydrates that are out there, they're not healthy for you. Stop eating them. And then that would be hard because this economy would lose probably a lot of money, a lot of jobs, but what do you do? Look at the crisis we're heading into with the obesity epidemic and how expensive that is, right?
Totally.
Like Chris Kresser talks a lot about the cost of like one single person with type 2 diabetes, $14,000 per year. Well, if they're getting diabetes at 15 or 20 and they have diabetes for the rest of their life, 2/3 of this nation is obese, like the numbers are just on the rise, and it's becoming a national security crisis.
Totally, right? Even like military recruits they're too fat for the physical.
Exactly. And we're running out of spending, we're running out of money to fund military or education or other important things when everything's going to healthcare. Yeah. So I don't know.
So truth in like food recommendations and food policy.
Exactly.
Because it's all funded by industry or influenced in some way.
Yeah.
Like look at the carbohydrate recommendations and fat recommendations. Yeah.
Exactly. The food pyramid.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. Drew, it's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. My pleasure.
So if folks are driving right now, they're listening in their car and they want to connect with you, where should they go?
Yeah, so it's super easy. Fit #2, fat #2, fit. Yeah. That's my social media handles, my website, my book, my podcast, everything. fit to fat to fit.
Yeah. So you're on iTunes, you're on YouTube, you're on Insta. I know those are the
Yes.
platforms where you're most active.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, iTunes, and YouTube. There's a lot of content on there. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool, guys. Well, I really appreciate you tuning all the way in. I really hope you enjoyed this content. Please hit that like button if you did, and follow Drew if you're not already at Fit2Fat.
To fit.
To fit.
Yeah,
So
I
don't know why I was.
I
don't know why I was blocking on that. I'll
That's
put all the
okay.
links below in the description. So really
Thanks
appreciate it, buddy.
again. Appreciate it, Mike.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.